Brother worked at a servo gas station at night. Guy tried to rob the place with a brick. Nobody move. This is a brick up. r/askreddit late night store Clerks. What is the strangest things that's happened on the job? Make sure to like and subscribe, it really helps the channel. I work nights at a gas station in a pretty good neighborhood in New Hampshire, so usually it's pretty boring. One night I did have a customer really creep me out. I was just getting ready to close down the store when a little old man came in. He was small and dressed in khakis and a button-down shirt. I made the usual small talk of asking him how his day was going. Then as I was handing him his change, he firmly grabbed my wrist, made direct eye contact with me, and said, "Hell is a real place and the devil has already got his hand on you, girl. Be careful." I've never been a store clerk, but I was lucky enough to witness the following story. 7/11, circa 1996. A guy walks up to the surly clerk, who seemed to work 25 hours a day, and asks, "Do you sell eggs by the 1/2 dozen?" Clerk: "No, you have to buy a dozen." Guy: "I only need 6. Clerk: "I don't care. You get 12, or you get 0. Without saying another word, the guy walks back to get his dozen eggs, pays, and walks out. Then he throws his 6 unwanted eggs at the store window before driving off. I work at a deli, and about a half hour from close a woman comes to the counter and just says, "Lamb bone." We had it, so I go to the back freezer. Come back to the counter and her daughter is there. She tells me to cancel the order. Meanwhile her mom is right beside her repeating "lamb bone" over and over again. She had dementia, and I didn't even notice. I worked 11 PM to 7 AM shift in an all-night garage for a few months when I was 18. There was this weird Vietnamese dude who drove a white Honda Prelude and always filled up with £6.66 of petrol. He wore the same pair of cutoffs every time, with blotches and bruises all over his legs, and used to literally wander in, leaning against the displays, pick up as many yogurts as he could carry, pay with a £50 note and stagger out. One time he came in with these two, obviously prostitute, women who were draped all over him with the biggest pupils I have ever seen. They stood at the counter while I scanned all their yogurts, and he spoke for the first and only time. Staring at me, said to the women, "She can join us, can't she?" One of the women looked at me and said, "You'll make a lot more money if you come with us, darling." I nervously laughed, took their cash and they left, grinning in silence. A man came in 10 times within a single hour. He kept leaving and coming back without buying a single thing. Finally, on the 10th time he comes up to the counter with a box of tampons. I proceeded to ask him, "Rough night?" To which he responded, "I really don't want to talk about it." Aside from the shit-covered walls and vomit that you'd expect from a typical gas station, I could say this was the most peculiar. I had a man come in and buy a novelty lighter and some lighter fluid. No biggie. Sometime the next week, police came in and asked for our camera footage the night I sold the lighter and stuff. The guy apparently used that lighter and fluid to kill his 3-month-old baby. Frick people, man. I watched a truck pull up to one of our pumps. Guy gets out to pump gas. A Durango comes hauling ass from the back of the building. Another guy gets out with a gun, aimed at the first guy. I was on the phone with a friend of mine and said, "Someone just pulled a gun at the pump. I'm going to have to let you go." I called the cops. Turned out the guy pumping gas had robbed a store 3 towns over, and the Durango was an undercover cop who had been in pursuit. Another time, a guy came in, walked to the back cooler, got a can of Sprite, and came to the register to check out. As I'm ringing him up, one of our local cops walks in, gun drawn, says, "Put your hands on the counter. Put your hands on the counter, now." Well, I put my hands on the counter along with the customer, because all I'm thinking is, I have no idea what I've done, but I'm very sorry for it. Turned out that guy had been involved with a robbery of a convenience store in the next town, 5 minutes away, had fled in a Mustang with 2 other individuals. They wrecked the car trying to evade the cops. All 3 dispersed, 2 were apprehended pretty quickly, but the 3rd came into the store to either blend in or rob me. I honestly don't know which. After the festivities and them hauling the guy away, the cop told me he had almost lost it when I put my hands on the counter too, and that I should really rethink working closing shifts at my age. I was 19 at the time and I'm female. I laughed and was like, and give up free entertainment. Edit. First story to clarify, the undercover cop jumped out of the Durango with a gun, pointed at the suspect. Regular male customer living across the street came over with flip-flops and a towel around his waist, dripping wet, grabbed a bar of soap, tossed $5 on the counter, and walked back out. Had 3 girls walk in at about 3 in the morning. I would swear they were 13 to 15 years old. Black mini skirts, see-through black tops, red bras, red thongs showing. Bought some candy and left. I hope I'm not too late to the party here. I used to work the graveyard shift at a gas station near my place. Pretty normal night. Clean, stock smokes, clean again, sit behind the counter. A woman came in about mid-30s with a little boy with her. She was in tears and her clothes were torn a bit. She came up and asked to use the phone. When she got off without getting an answer, she asked to stay here for a bit. I told her it would be no problem. About 20 minutes goes by and I wound up giving her and her kid free drinks and one of the sandwiches we have on the hot rack. She was in the store for about 30 minutes until her boyfriend came in and found her and her kid. He was pretty calm at first but then started screaming at her and telling her she needs to come with him. Luckily before anything crazy happened, a cruiser pulls up to the front and 2 cops come in and intervened. He was arrested right there. I guess he had been beating her in front of her kid and she was trying to run away. I'm glad I got to keep her away from harm for at least a little bit. Was a scary night. A guy came in to buy beer after hours. Told him I couldn't sell, it was against the law. He pulled out a badge, said I'm the law. I called 911 and a cop shows up, tells me if I can just let it go, I wouldn't have any more problems. I'll let it go. 2 weeks later, driving home late at night, way over the speed limit I got pulled over. It was cop #2. He came up to the car, recognized me, said slow down and left. I worked at a small convenience store in the early 1990s. They had one of those friedelis that had chicken, judges, corn dogs, burritos etc. This particular night I had run out of burritos and chicken. I also shut the thing down and cleaned it all out about an hour before closing. About 5 minutes before I was closing up a guy walked in and asked for some burritos. I told him I was out of them and that I was just about to close and the fryer was shut down. He walked around the store for a minute. I assumed he was looking for something else to buy and then he came up to the counter, pulled out a knife and told me if I didn't cook him some burritos he was going to stab me. I freaked out but told him I had none to cook. I showed him the freezer and told him I would happily cook anything he wanted from it, but he will see I was out of burritos. He looked in it for a minute, turned to me and said, "You really are out?" I replied, "Yeah." He then put the knife away and left the store. I worked at a 24/7 convenience store. One night I had a customer come in, clearly drunk, and ask where the bathrooms were. I directed him to the bathrooms, which were in the store, but he kept saying "Oh okay, they're around the back." "No, they're right there." "Okay, I'll go around back." He left through the front door. I imagined he would just go on the side of the building, so not my problem anymore. Then I look up, and he's behind the cash register looking for a toilet, I assume. My coworker left the back door unlocked. I was across the store stocking, so I yelled to my coworker to get him out. The drunk dude was nice enough about the mix-up, and pretended it was just a joke, I guess. Then my coworker guided him to the actual restrooms. I started stalking near the restrooms to kind of keep an ear on him, and from inside the restroom, I hear, "Ah frick, I'm peeing everywhere. I'm gonna pee on the sink, the toilet. F this hand dryer." "I'm just kidding Clark guy, I'm only peeing in the toilet." The guy came out, and laughing so hard he was crying, then left after buying some Funans. He was laughing at himself the whole time on his way out, like he just pulled the funniest prank of his life. In high school I worked at a 24 pharmacy which also had a small selection of beer. At about 2 AM this guy walks in 3 sheets to the wind, saunters over to the beer and grabs 2 12-packs. He comes up to the counter and slams the beer down, reaches into his pocket and pulls out a half-eaten taco and puts it on the counter. I couldn't say anything because I was so perplexed. I just let him walk out with a beer. and told my bosses I thought he might have a gun also. Was the strangest thing I've ever seen. A couple weeks later he apparently tried this at the family-owned gas station across the street and got shot. Thanks for sticking till the end lads and ladies. Don't forget to like and subscribe.